discrimination and the Arizona law. Clearly, President Obama is unhappy with the tone of the law.
The Arizona law has the potential of being applied in a discriminatory fashion.
All right, so we asked attorney and Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly to analyze the law, and here she is. Now, you actually read it, unlike the Attorney General?
Yeah, not only
unlike
that,
the Homeland Security Chief?
Yes.
Unlike the President? We don't believe he read it either. We could be wrong.
Unlike a
you
top
have
State
read
Department
it.
officials.
And
Yeah.
how long is it?
It depends on how you print it out. It's any place between 10 and 18 pages.
And how long did it take you, Megyn Kelly, to read it?
It took me about an hour.
Oh, an hour! Now, were you reading it while your hair was getting done and other stuff? Or?
In the commercial breaks on my show, I managed to squeeze it in for you.
So you read, it took you an hour, a full hour.
Not only did I read the law, but I actually read case law, U.S. Supreme Court history, and other interpretations of that law. And I have to tell you, this is the first time I've taken a seriously hard look at the claim that this is just like the federal law, and the claim that, you know, by the detractors, that it's actually discrimination, or will lead to discrimination more so than the federal law. And my legal opinion is, it is a little bit like the federal law, but if anything, it's less problematic. Did you know that the Supreme Court already ruled a few years ago that under federal law, cops can pull you over for no reason and demand to see your immigration papers? That for no reason. They don't have to have reasonable suspicion. It was called Mueller versus Mena back in 2005. It was a unanimous Supreme Court decision.
What was the lawsuit about?
And that was about under what circumstances can a police officer stop you and ask you certain questions. And the court, this is written by then Chief Justice Rehnquist, who said in that case, hold on, let me get it because it's here in front of me someplace. He said, the officers did not need reasonable suspicion to ask Mena for her name, date, and place of birth, or immigration status. The cops do not need reasonable suspicion to ask you about immigration status.
What was the
under
reason?
Arizona law, they do.
Okay,
They do.
Yeah,
it's tougher. Arizona's tougher.
What was the reasoning by Rehnquist and the other 8 justices that the police can ask
because
you?
They went through sort of the standards of detention. There's sort of like a brief passing on the street. There's something that's greater than that, sort of a detention, and then there's like full-on arrest and custody. And the standard that the cops have to follow in questioning you or stopping you under each one of those. And they basically said that when it's just like a passing kind of thing where they want to see your ID, they want to check your immigration status.
The police have a right to know who's in the neighborhood,
yes,
who's driving.
So you could be harassed by federal law enforcement, much more so than you could in Arizona, where they say you do have to have reasonable suspicion.
So the Arizona build-in, you have to have an association with the police ongoing for them to ask.
Can I just make it clear, though, in Arizona, not only in Arizona you have to have reasonable suspicion for stopping somebody in the first place, because it has to be, they call it a lawful stop or detention or arrest. So that's number one, not required under federal law. And number two, there has to be a reasonable suspicion to then inquire into your immigration status, not required under federal law. And number three, under Arizona law, you cannot consider the person's race in determining whether you have that reasonable suspicion. Also not a problem under federal law.
That's where it becomes problematic. So what's reasonable suspicion to, reasonable suspicion to me would be you can't produce your driver's license or an insurance card.
Right.
And that's what I think it is.
Right.
Now, the final thing in this law is what is upsetting Barack Obama, Calderon, the American left, is that Mexicans, Mexican-Americans, Mexicans themselves are going to be the targets because Arizona is being overwhelmed by Mexicans. That's who's coming. So therefore, when you single out Mexicans, that's discriminatory.
Race will be a factor, even though it's not supposed to be.
Because if it were Canada we were having trouble with, it would be Canadians.
Well, listen, even to the extent that they're right, that there's a legitimate, fear that the police are going to misapply the law and not follow the law.
But that's speculation.
I know, but listen, that's their complaint. They've already filed a lawsuit, ACLU. But there is a federal statute that would speak to that. It's called the 1983 action. You can sue cops if they do something discriminatory
and they can't prove they had the same.
That's the remedy.
So there is checks and balances on this law all day long.
Yeah.
So the last question is, if this is true, if what you've read and all the research that you've done that said federal law is much harsher than the Arizona state law, why is there this outcry at all? Why is President Obama we know why Calderon's doing it. He needs the money, so we know that. But why does Obama line himself up against 86% of the country? 86% of the country agrees with you, Kelly, which is frightening, but they do, all right? And the president is setting himself up against the 86%.
I'll tell you why, because I come on here as a legal analyst because I practiced law for 9 years. I don't think he's looking at it as a
But
lawyer.
he's a lawyer.
I don't think he's looking at it as a lawyer. I think he's looking at it as a politician.
But he's got 86%. If he's a politician, he's
right.
a dumb one.
Well, so then get Carl Cameron on here to explain to you why that makes sense
But
for
does
him.
that make sense to you?
But I have to say, as a legal matter, I don't see what the fuss is about.
But as a politician, if you were advising as
Well, the
somebody's
Hispanic
political
vote is a
commander,
very important
Mr.
vote in this
President,
country.
you have 86% of the public against your take. That just seems to be suicide to me.
All I can speculate is that the Hispanic vote is a very important voting bloc. in this country.
75% of Democrats
Yeah.
support the right of the police to ask. That has to include almost every Hispanic.
Yeah, that question's for Carl Cameron.
All right. Megyn Kelly, we're going to hold her over here because we have